Harry Burns joins me to talk about this, former Labour head of elections for the 2017 election, now political consultant at Shelagh Consultancy. Harry, first of all, does it feel a bit déjà vu to you, some of this?
I find it's quite staggering, and it shows how far the party has fallen, that it's in any way controversial that the party might use the national flag or promote our veterans in their sort of campaigning work. I mean, it just shows what damage Corbyn had done to the Labour brand, that this is now seen as radical within the party. I mean, it's basically the bare minimum for what a party who seeks to be a party of government would do in an election campaign, in my view.
And there's a bit of it struck me about the response to Captain Tom, not just yesterday and today, in reaction to his sad death, but throughout the summer as well. That there was a very instinctive, I felt it too, there was a very instinctive pleasure in what he had achieved. And then you looked at that. I mean, the moment I found incredibly moving, I cry every time I see the footage, was when he is knighted. And, we hadn't seen the Queen for ages, and then she comes out on that beautiful sunny day and knights him, and it's just the two of them, two elderly people, and, who've lived their life at the same time, the same era. I found it an incredibly moving moment to watch. And I do wonder how that would have been received in, your average constituency Labour Party meeting, if I was ever to go to one.
Well, firstly, I would say don't necessarily go to one. If you want to join the party,
I'm not joining the Labour Party, don't worry.
But I wouldn't say go to a Labour Party meeting, really, especially not in its current incarnation. I mean, the party, when I first joined, so I started working for the Labour Party about 10 years ago, and it's a completely different entity to the party that I left in 2017 after the general election. The party had become toxic and hostile and just so far out of step with what I believe ordinary voters and ordinary British people stand for and sort of believe in. It's become a cult, and people have become obsessed with issues which I just don't think resonate with any former Labour voter. I think, especially in the modern day sort of environment where people are saturated by information, and particularly sort of disinformation and what goes on online. I think what people are looking for is they're looking for someone's values and commitment and vision. They're not looking for a set of policies, and they're especially not really looking for their policy on Israel, Palestine, even though that's of course very important. They're looking for a leader, and whilst I think Starmer is definitely an improvement on what had come before, I think he is a long way off from making that emotional connection with voters, which I think is just fundamental to any good modern day politician.
And it seems to me, because I was at the very beginning of my career when it happened, and I look back on it now, it seems to me that the lessons that were learned in those late 80s, early 90s that eventually led up to the victory for New Labour, you went through Kinnock and John Smith and Tony Blair, it seemed to me one of the fundamental lessons that Labour had to learn as a party was to instinctively show and hopefully make it real, authentic, show its respect for the people whose vote it wanted. You can't expect to win someone over if your attitude to their life is to roll your eyes or to disapprove.
I mean, absolutely. And I think that is, it seems very strange and sort of counterintuitive that someone like Boris Johnson and, other Tory prime ministers that have come before them, that somehow they managed to connect with voters and show themselves as being more aligned to what voters' lives are like, even though, their upbringing and background are so vastly different to the vast majority of British people. But that sort of shows, I think, perhaps they, sort of embrace a style that, but also a set of policies that do speak to people's sort of everyday lives. People want to work hard for themselves and they want to get on. And I think if the Labour Party thumbs their noses at people that, that want to sort of, want to strive and succeed for themselves, and just promote what the government would do for them, then I think that's not a great way of reaching people. Even though, I'm a great believer in a big state and, and social safety nets. And I think COVID is showing just how important, acting collectively is to everyone. People do want to see, that connection with their everyday lives and their sort of, their personal experiences.
And it's funny, I was thinking about flags because in light of what Clive Lewis, the Labour MP Clive Lewis said, he said the Tory party has absorbed UKIP and now Labour appears to be absorbing the language and symbols of the Tory party, the flag, It's not patriotism, flag waving, he says. You may have seen this quote, it's fatherlandism. There's a better way, he says, to build social cohesion than moving down the track of the nativist right. Now, I'm not a flag waver myself. I've never been particularly comfortable waving a flag, any flag. And I'm not quite sure why. I suspect it might be down to Anglo-Irish. I'm an Anglo-Irish person, so there's a mixture there. And because historically there's conflict there, I just think we'll leave the flags and we'll just get on with people. We'll leave the flags down. But I have no problem with an individual waving the flag of their country. You think of royal celebrations, jubilees. You think of when the Pope holds a massive audience in St. Peter's Square and everybody's there with their national flag so they can be seen. Lithuania's here, Poland's here, Argentina's here, whatever. Why do you think Labour is afraid of that, if indeed it is?
I mean, thankfully there's not that many Clive Lewises in the Parliamentary Labour Party, but there are still, in my view, too many people with those sorts of views to make Labour, a proper contender for government in the next election. It's that sort of, it's giving up the flag to the far right and to political forces that we might not agree with. You are giving it up rather than saying, rather than trying to reclaim it and say it's a flag for everyone. As with all national flags, you shouldn't, it shouldn't be a thing that is used jingoistically, but you can absolutely feel pride in your country. Of course you can. And especially, around sporting moments, or hopefully when we come out of this terrible pandemic, there will be a groundswell of pride in what we have achieved as a country, not in terms of, in
the vaccine,
the pandemic. Absolutely, in terms of the vaccine.
And sacrifice and NHS workers and
And that is going to be something which the Tories are going to capitalise on. And if Keir Starmer is not managing to take the lead over the Tories at this very moment, then he certainly isn't going to when there is that, that good feeling which will be created by us all being able to leave our houses again.
There will be good feeling, but it's tainted, and that has to be addressed as well, doesn't it? It's tainted by those deaths.
Yeah, absolutely. But it just shows that there is such a long way to go for the party that they can't even take the lead in the polls at the moment when the government have, done such a bad job at, lowering the death rate and ensuring our economy doesn't take the biggest possible hit in the world.
Thank you, Harry. Good to talk to you. Harry Burns, former Labour head of elections for the 2017 election.